Welcome to the webinar for Streamlined Retroactive Reinstatement. My name is Dr. Angela Hicks, CEO of Grant Professional, offering grant technical assistance. I'm so happy you're joining us today to learn how to reinstate your 501c3. Grant Professional is a $500,000 national grant technical assistance company. We're providing business development services for grant writing, to start a nonprofit, and to reinstate auto-revoke nonprofits. Our website is www.grantprofessional.com. How do you know which process is right for you in filing for your reinstatement? The streamlined retroactive reinstatement process is right for you if the organization have not previously had their tax-exempt status automatically revoked, if the organization will complete and submit Form 1023, and if the organization establishes reasonable cause for its failure to file a required annual return for all 3 consecutive years in which it failed to file. We will discuss this more in the webinar. Documents you will need for reinstatement are Form 1023, or Form 1023-EZ, Form 1023 attachments, which we will discuss as part of the discussion on completing Form 1023, taxes for the years not filed, and 2 required IRS statements. If you decide at any time in this process that you would like to request professional help from Grant Professional to complete the process for you, all fees paid for this webinar may apply to full service support to reinstate your 501c3. The fee for full service is $7.95, and we promise to file your application along with your taxes within 10 days to the IRS. Section 1 of the webinar, Form 1023, Frequently Asked Questions. The application for exemption for recognition of exemption under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code is Form 1023. Let's pause here and download Form 1023 so you can follow along. Form 1023 can be found in your webinar course documents. In this webinar, we will offer helpful tips on frequently asked questions from previous clients. However, this is a general overview and not a one-size-fits-all. As you could imagine, each organization is unique. Take this opportunity to update or complete all 30 pages of your previously filed Form 1023 if needed. At the very least, you will need to update to the newer version, 2013, if it's been 2 years since you have updated your Form 1023. Form 1023 has 11 parts and 8 schedules. Due to several IRS changes, we highly recommend you seek advice to complete your Form 1023. You may always contact Grant Professional, and our email is 501c3@grantprofessional.com, or you may call us at 888-846-9255 to get help. The next slides will have follow-along updates and tips. You should have your Form 1023 in front of you to follow along. You may want to prepare to take notes, so have a pen and pad handy. We will get started with Part 1 of 11 parts of Form 1023. As we move along, I will highlight information on attachments. It's important that you take notes of the attachments and where they are because they are an important part of the application. This section is identification of applicant, starting on page 1 of the application. We will look at question number 5. Month the annual accounting period ends. For question number 5, pay attention to your accounting period. You may use either calendar year ending December 31 or fiscal year ending June 30th. Question number 11, the date incorporated. The date incorporated is the authorized stamp date of your articles of incorporation. Your date of filing and tax filing due is all connected to your accounting period. Part 2, organizational structure. We are now on page 2. Question number 1. Are you a corporation? If yes, you would attach your authorized certification of filing with any amendments. These are your state-level documents. This is also often referred to as your organizing documents. Next question, number 5. Have you adopted bylaws? Here, if you have adopted your bylaws, you would attach your bylaws, which are often referred to as rules of operation. This is an attachment and will need to be signed, dated, and adopted by the board. Please note, this is the first attachment in our discussion. Part 3, required provisions in your organizing documents. We are still on page 2 of Form 1023, but Part 3, questions number 1 and 2, A, B. The following questions are designed to ensure that when you file this application, your organizing document contains the required provisions to meet the organizational test under Section 501c3. Unless you can check the boxes in both lines 1 and 2, your organizing document does not meet the organizational test, and do not file this application until you have amended your organizing documents. Submit your original and amended organizing documents with this application. Question number 1 under this section. Section 501c3 requires that your organizing documents state your exempt purpose, such as charitable, religious, educational, and/or scientific purpose. Check the box to confirm that your organizing document meets this requirement and describes specifically where your organizing document meets this requirement, such as a reference to a particular article or section in your organizing document. For example, you may do this by stating the location of the purpose clause in terms of page, article, and paragraph. For example, again, page 3, article 4, paragraph 1. Question number 2, A and B. Section 501c3 requires that upon dissolution of your organization, your remaining assets must be used exclusively for exempt purposes such as charitable, religious, educational, and/or scientific purposes. So you would check the box on line 2A to confirm that your organizing document meets this important requirement by express provision for the distribution of assets upon dissolution. And again, you may express that by specifying the location of your dissolution clause using page, article, and paragraph. For example, again, page 3, article 7, paragraph 1. Please make a note. This is attachment number 2 and attachment number 3 in our discussion. Part 4, narrative description of your activities. Using an attachment, describe your past, present, and planned activities in a narrative. If you believe that you have already provided some of this information in response to other parts of this application, you may summarize that information here and refer to the specific parts of the application for supporting details. You may also attach representative copies of newsletters, brochures, or similar documents for supporting details to this narrative. However, you should remember that if this application is approved, it will be open for public inspection. Therefore, your narrative description of activities should be thorough and accurate. Please make a note. This is attachment number 4 in our discussion. Part 5, Compensation and other financial arrangements with your officers, directors, trustees, employees, and contractors. We are at the bottom of page 2, where you will list the names, titles, and mailing address of all of your directors, officers, and trustees. For each person listed, state their total annual compensation or their proposed compensation for all services to your organization, whether as an officer, employee, or any other position. Use actual figures as well if they are available. Either none if no compensation, which is what I normally offer for first-time organizations, no compensation, or you can offer to pay compensation. In that instance, you will need to explain the compensation to your program officers. Question number 2A. Are any of your officers, directors, or trustees related to each other through family or business relationships? If yes, you would need to explain this to the IRS, and this would become a potential attachment. However, don't worry. Having a family member on the board is okay as long as you provide transparency about the relationship to the IRS. When considering your board members, always keep in mind their experience should directly relate to the mission of your organization. Question number 5A. Have you adopted a conflict of interest clause? It is recommended that you adopt a conflict of interest policy consistent with the sample conflict of interest policy offered by the IRS. You can review that policy at irs.gov, go to the search bar, and put in conflict of interest policy, and that policy will be there. For your conflict of interest policy, it will need to be signed, dated, and adopted by your board of directors. And as a tip, the person that signs one area of your application should sign all of the areas of your application. Part 6, questions 1A and 2. This is in reference to your members and other individuals and organizations that receive benefits from you. This is often a core discussion of your programs. And the questions are to describe if you provide goods, services, or funds to individuals and organizations. Again, this will often be your core discussion of your programs and how you will provide them. For example, if you will feed and clothe the homeless, you may provide here your feeding program and then explain the who, what, when, where, and how you will feed the homeless, and then move forward to explain your clothing program in the same way. We suggest not to bombard the IRS program officer with a lengthy discussion about your programs, but to explain your goals and objectives here in a focused list. Part 7, your history. Question number 2. Question number 2 asks, are you submitting this application more than 27 months after the end of the month in which you were legally formed? The answer is generally no, if this is a reinstatement. This question would have been addressed as a first-time organization applying for your 501c3. However, if you fill out Schedule E because you are answering yes to this question, the Schedule E is on page 20. And you will need to go to the checklist on page 27 of this application and check which schedule you will submit. That, of course, will be Schedule E, and the list of schedule is located under Schedules on page 27. Part 8, your specific activities. Do you or will you undertake fundraising? If you answer yes to this question, examples of fundraising programs could be, and they are not limited to, mail solicitations, email solicitations, foundation grant solicitations, accepting donations on your website, government grant solicitations. But whatever the fundraising program that you choose, you will need to explain that program in detail in your application. This is attachment number 7 in this discussion. Part 9. Financial data is on page 9. Fill out all required tax filings. You can make a note here on page 9 in the first empty box to C990 tax filings. This will be discussed further in the next section. However, please note, taxes are filed separately and mailed to a different address than the Form 1023. The IRS requires that taxes are mailed either simultaneously with the Form 1023 or in advance of the filing of the Form 1023. You will need to file 2 additional clauses which are required and attach both of those clauses to your Form 1023. These 2 additional attachments are required, and theoretically in this discussion, these are attachments number 8 and attachment number 9. But remember, the number and type of attachment may vary depending on the needs of your organization. The first of the 2 required clauses is tax confirmation. This is a statement confirming that the organization has filed required returns for those 3 years and for any other taxable years after such period and before the postmark date of the application for which required returns were due and not filed. The second of the 2 clauses is a reasonable clause statement. This reasonable clause statement is very important. It establishes that your organization exercised ordinary business care and prudence in determining and attempting to comply with its annual reporting requirement. The statement should have a detailed description of all the facts and circumstances about why your organization failed to file, how it discovered the failure, and the steps it has taken or will take to avoid or mitigate future failures. An important tip is you can avoid future failures by getting a tax professional to file your taxes and let the IRS know this in your statement that you will get a tax professional to be responsible for the filing of your taxes so as you will get a reminder. Part 10, Public Charity Status on page 10. Part 10 is designed to classify you as an organization that is either a private foundation or a public foundation, a public charity. Public charity status is a more favorable tax status than private foundation status. If you are a private foundation, then Part 10 is designed to further determine whether you are a private operating foundation. Question number 1A. Are you a private foundation? Generally, organizations would want to have a more favorable tax status, so they would choose no. So if you choose no in this instance, you would move to line number 5. Question number 5. The organization is not a private foundation because, and we have A through I, and generally, organizations would choose letter G, which is an organization that receives a substantial part of its financial support in the form of contributions from publicly supported organizations, from a governmental unit, or from the general public. Sometimes organizations will choose I if you are not sure of which area to choose, and this would allow the IRS to make the decision for you. Question number 6, advance ruling. By checking this box and signing the consent, you are requesting advance ruling which would allow you to garner support as a public support status organization. And this will give you a 5-year advance ruling period to make sure that you will be a 501c3 and operate under all of its rules and requirements. Part 11, user fee information. You must include a user fee payment with this application. It will not be processed without your paid user fee. If your annual gross receipts have exceeded or will exceed $10,000 over a 4-year period, and that's $10,000 annually, you must submit payment of $850. If your gross receipts have not exceeded or will not exceed $10,000 annually over a 4-year period, the required user fee payment is $400. In order to make sure that the IRS is clear on your user fee, you would check number 1, as stated, yes, if your average receipts are expected to average not more than $10,000, or no, if your average receipts are expected to average over $10,000. Number 2, check this box if you have enclosed a reduced user fee payment of $400. And number 3, check this box if you have included the user fee payment of $850. And finally, let's note that an incorrect user fee sent to the IRS is the number one reason an applicant's application is returned. When this fee is sent, do not attach any staples or clips. You would just place it on top of your documents. And also, when you are authorizing signatures of officers, directors, or trustees, or any other authorized official, it is recommended to ensure that there is only one consistent officer signing all required areas of the application. Benefits of HELP is significant. We have heard from others this process can be a little overwhelming. Therefore, if you do get a professional to assist you with the application, an expert that stays with you to answer all IRS questions, you can avoid headaches of filings of all required taxes and required IRS clauses. Having a professional to complete your application for reinstatement of your 501c3 may be right for your organization. It is up to you to choose what's right for you and your organization. All fees paid for this webinar may apply to full service support for reinstatement of your 501c3. Section 2 of the webinar will discuss taxes for years not filed. Schedule A, Form 990, is public charity status and public support. This is your form to file for taxes. Let's pause here and download Schedule A so you can follow along. A sample Schedule A is in your course documents for download. A Schedule A for your specific tax year cannot be found in your webinar course documents because the specific tax year is unique to your organization's filings. If you would like to follow along with the tax documents that are specific to your organization's tax years, download the Schedule A, Form 990 or 990EZ, tax year needed for your organization from irs.gov. Make sure you determine the correct tax years needed for your organization. Then go to Forms and Publications, then Prior Years. Once there, type in the lower search bar 990, and 990s for years in question for you will come up. You will complete Schedule A, Form 990 or 990EZ, to file taxes for the 3 years that cause revocation of your 501c3. Let's get started. This is a 2-part discussion. Now that you have the taxes in front of you, let's follow along. Part 1, of 2 is discussed here. Please be reminded these are frequently asked questions from previous clients. Tax years prior to 2014 are explained here. The form changed slightly in 2014, which is why we're making a distinction. But in my experience, new organizations generally fill out Part 1 and Part 2, regardless of the change. Moving to Form Schedule A 990 990EZ. Part 1, Reason for Public Charity Status. The question is, the organization is not a private foundation because it is. You would check boxes 1 through 11. And what we have found is that clients most often check box number 7. But of course, each organization's situation is unique. Let's read number 7. An organization that normally receives a substantial part of its support from a government unit or from the general public. This is part 2 of 2 discussed here. So we'll move down to part 2, which is on page 2, support schedule for organizations described in these sections. You are to complete part 2 only if you checked the box on line 5, 7, or 8 in part 1. And we, in this example, checked box 7. So now that we're moving to part 2, let's complete section A, public support. Calendar year, or using your fiscal year, calendar year ending December 31, fiscal year ending June 30th, you would look at numbers 1 through 6 for section A. Number 1, gifts, grants, contributions, etc. You would put those areas down that pertain to monies that you received and then total it. Number 2, any tax revenues levied for your organization's benefit would go here. Number 3, the value of service or facilities furnished by a governmental unit to the organization without charge. That would go here. That is oftentimes called in kind. Then you would total on number 4, lines 1 through 3. And number 5 is the portion of total contributions by each person included on line 1 that exceeds 2% of the amount shown on line 11, column F. Number 6, you would subtract line 5 from line 4, and that would give you the total that should go here. Section B, total support. Again, looking at calendar year or fiscal year. Numbers 7 through 13 are discussed here. Number 7, you would add amounts from line 4. Number 8, gross income from interest, dividends, payments, etc. you would put here. Number 9, any net income from unrelated business activities you would put here. 10, any other income. 11, the total support would be figured by adding lines 7 through 10 and putting the total there. Number 12 is your gross receipts from related activities. And number 13 is the question on your first 5 years. So if the Form 990 is for the organization's first through 5th tax year as a Section 501c3, then you are to check this box and stop here. And that would complete your needed information for your tax filings. In order to be reinstated, on completing this step-by-step process to reinstate your 501c3. You are now just one step away from accomplishing your mission and serving your target population.